How did you know that?
Because I talked to Chris Brown at KPMG about it.
And you guys said discussions, was that discussions with Chris Brown?
In large part, yes.
Okay. This memo incorporates discussions or facts that you've learned from Chris Brown. Is that accurate?
Yes, yes.
How did you know that?
That was via discussions with Chris Brown. No personal knowledge. From my discussions with Chris Brown.
And that's the only source of information?
It's the only source of information that I can recall on here, yes.
Do you see that?
Yes.
Is that information that you received from Chris Brown?
Yes.
And was Chris Brown your only source of information for that?
Yes, as I recall.
You see that?
Yes.
Is that information that you received from Chris Brown?
Yes, I didn't have any personal knowledge of the drafting or the issuance of the press release. So yes, I would have gotten. I've discussed it with him, with Chris.
And did you see that?
Yes.
Okay. Was that what Wilmer Hale said, or was that something you found?
I would have learned that through Chris Brown.
You see that?
Yes.
And Chris Brown is Chris Brown from KPMG?
That's correct. I think Chris Brown told me that he had discussions with Steve, I think, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
Okay.
But you have never spoken with Mr. Sugarman about it?
About why he resigned?
Right.
No, I haven't. I have not.
So you don't have any basis on which to understand why he resigned?
The basis is based on my discussions with Chris Brown.
So your basis for that understanding is your conversations with
Yes.
Chris Brown?
Yeah.
You said Chris Brown's involvement in the special committee process. Do you know if Chris Brown was involved in the special committee process?
My understanding is that he attended interviews and he attended certain special committee meetings, but I don't know firsthand. I haven't,
Were you aware that Chris Brown was failed by the PCAOB for his prior bank audit?
I know that they, quote unquote, pulled their opinion from 2013, I believe, or 13, I believe. But I don't know about I don't know what happened with the PCAOB. But I'd heard, I don't know if they're rumors, but I'd heard that it had something to do with the PCAOB looking in one of their inspections. Again, this is well before my time there.
So you weren't aware of any issues that Chris Brown had with his prior bank audit with the PCAOB?
I can't recall at this time. I don't even remember if that 2013 was under the former auditor or the KPMG. I don't remember.
You weren't aware of any issues with the 2015 PCAOB or the 2015 audit?
I'm not aware of anything related to the PCAOB looking at or having any commentary on 2015's audit.
What were those numerous sources?
Primarily either from public filing disclosures or from Chris Brown.
Did Mr. Chris Brown of KPMG have any comments on the memorandum?
Yes. Yeah. This sentence or paragraph would have I would have sourced from Chris Brown, so I don't have personal knowledge of the warrant transfer or any agreements or understandings.
Do you agree with the statement there was no missing required disclosures?
Based on the facts that Chris Brown had given me, yes.
And I guess maybe a shortcut to going through some of these questions, I'd like to understand what material here was not sourced from Chris Brown, if any.
Okay.
Okay, so you've testified that the two primary sources were the public filings and information from Chris Brown. What I'm trying to get to is whether there were any other sources with respect to this box. So with respect to this box, are there any sources other than public filings and information that you received from Chris Brown?
No.
Were there any sources of information or that supported your opinion other than Chris Brown or the public filings?
No.
Beyond Chris Brown and the public filings, are there other sources of information that support the opinions that appear in this box?
No, not that I can think of.
Were there any sources other than publicly available documents and what you learned from Chris Brown that support the statements in that paragraph?
No.
Do you see that paragraph?
Yes.
Were there any sources other than publicly available filings and what you learned from Chris Brown that supported the statements in that paragraph?
No.
Did you and your team do any personal vetting of the issues, or did you rely on the sources we discussed earlier, the public filings and what you learned from?
I relied on those sources.